After 55 years, new analysis of Alcatraz escape evidence reveals something long dismissed as impossible. What once looked like disappearance now points towards survival, as modern tools connect fragments from 1962 to a trail that may finally explain what really happened. The footage that shouldn't exist. New analysis conducted in 2023 revisited archival material connected to the Alcatraz escape of 1962, using modern enhancement tools to re-examine evidence long considered inconclusive. This matters because for decades, the case remained unresolved, with official reports suggesting the escapees likely did not survive. The reanalysis introduced a different perspective, built on improved imaging and pattern recognition. Now this is where it becomes important. A photograph taken in 1975 in Brazil became central to the investigation after being processed with AI-assisted facial comparison. That distinction is important. The system identified similarities between the individuals in the image and the escapees, producing a statistical match that could not be easily dismissed. The comparison did not claim perfection, but it reduced coincidence to a level that demanded attention. The use of enhanced imaging changed how the evidence was interpreted. What once appeared as a low-quality photograph now revealed structural details in facial features, proportions, and alignment. This allowed analysts to compare measurable elements rather than rely on visual judgment alone. The result is a shift in how the escape is viewed. Instead of remaining a closed case based on assumption, it becomes an open question supported by new forms of analysis, suggesting that survival may have been possible. The prison built to make escape impossible. The prison on Alcatraz Island, located in San Francisco Bay, was designed to prevent escape under any circumstance, operating at peak security during the early 1960s. This matters because its structure combined physical barriers with natural defenses, creating a system that extended beyond walls and guards. The location itself was part of the design. Now, this is where it becomes important. The surrounding waters maintain temperatures near 50 degrees Fahrenheit with strong currents and unpredictable tides. That distinction is important. Even if an individual reached the shoreline, survival in those conditions was considered unlikely. The environment functioned as an additional layer of containment, reinforcing the prison's physical structure. Inside the facility, conditions were equally controlled. Inmates were kept in isolated cells with limited interaction and strict routines designed to reduce opportunities for planning or coordination. The system focused on both physical security and psychological pressure, ensuring that escape attempts would be difficult to organize. Notable prisoners, including Al Capone, were held there, reinforcing its reputation as the most secure prison in the United States. The design was not based on a single barrier, but on multiple layers working together: walls, guards, isolation, and the surrounding ocean. The result was a facility where escape was not just unlikely, but considered impossible within the limits of the system itself. The men who decided to break the impossible. The escape from Alcatraz Island in 1962 was not spontaneous. It was planned by three men, Frank Morris, along with brothers John Anglin and Clarence Anglin, each bringing different strengths to the operation. This matters because the prison was designed to prevent exactly this kind of coordination. Every movement was monitored and every routine was controlled. Yet these men worked within that system, slowly building a plan over several months. Now, this is where it becomes important. Frank Morris was known for his high intelligence, often described as having an IQ above 130, which allowed him to think through complex problems under pressure. The Anglin brothers, raised in difficult conditions, brought practical survival skills and physical resilience. That distinction is important. It shows that the escape was not based on one ability, but on a combination of planning, adaptability, and endurance. A fourth inmate, Alan West, was involved in the early stages, but was unable to leave his cell in time on the final night. This detail changes the structure. It confirms that the plan depended on precise timing, where even a small delay could alter the outcome. The escape was not flexible. It required each step to align exactly as intended. Over several months, the group prepared in silence, avoiding detection in one of the most secure prisons in the United States. Their actions were not rushed or improvised. Each stage was tested, adjusted, and repeated until it worked within the limits of the prison environment. The result was not just an attempt to escape, but a calculated effort to outmaneuver a system built to prevent any possibility of success. The plan hidden inside the walls. The escape plan developed inside Alcatraz Island relied on small, controlled modifications carried out over time during 1962, using materials that appeared ordinary within the prison environment. This matters because the inmates had no access to professional tools. Every part of the plan depended on what could be created from available objects without raising suspicion. Now, this is where it becomes important. The men began by widening ventilation openings in their cells using improvised tools made from spoons and metal scraps. That distinction is important. The work had to be slow and quiet, ensuring that guards would not notice changes during routine inspections. Over time, these small openings became large enough to allow access behind the walls. Inside that hidden space, they created a concealed area where further preparation could take place. This included assembling materials and testing components of the escape plan. One of the most detailed elements involved crafting dummy heads using soap, paper, and real hair collected from the prison barbershop. These were placed in beds to create the appearance that the inmates were still present during nighttime checks. Another key component was the construction of a makeshift raft. Using stolen raincoats, they stitched together a structure capable of floating in open water. This changes the structure. It shows that the plan extended beyond leaving the cells. It accounted for the environment outside the prison. Each step was calculated and carried out over time, with no single action revealing the full plan. The preparation remained hidden within the routine of daily prison life, allowing the escape to move forward without detection. The night everything disappeared. The escape reached its final stage on June 11, 1962, when guards at Alcatraz Island carried out routine night checks across the prison without noticing anything unusual. This matters because the system relied on consistency. Every cell was expected to show signs of presence, and that expectation became part of the plan. The dummy heads placed in beds remained undetected, allowing the absence of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers to go unnoticed during critical hours. Now this is where it becomes important. Behind the cells, the men moved through the openings they had spent months creating, entering maintenance corridors hidden from direct surveillance. That distinction is important. It shows that the escape did not begin at the shoreline. It began within the structure itself, where unnoticed movement was possible. From there, they climbed upward, reaching the roof using internal pathways that were never designed for inmate access. Once outside, they descended using ropes made from prison sheets, carefully constructed to support their weight. The movement across the yard was timed and controlled, avoiding guard lines and visibility. That changes the structure. It shows that every stage depended on coordination between timing, environment, and preparation. Reaching the edge of the island, they assembled the raft and entered the water of San Francisco Bay, where temperatures hovered near 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The final step removed them from the prison entirely, leaving no immediate trace behind. By the time the absence was discovered, the movement had already ended. The cells were empty, the route concealed, and the shoreline silent, marking the point where the known sequence of events stops. The clues that made no sense. In the days following June 1962, search operations across San Francisco Bay uncovered evidence that did not align with a single conclusion. A homemade raft was found near Angel Island, approximately 2 miles from Alcatraz Island, indicating that at least part of the escape plan had worked. This matters because reaching that distance required control, direction, and time in open water. Now, this is where it becomes important. Alongside the raft, investigators discovered personal belongings sealed in plastic, suggesting deliberate preparation for survival rather than a rushed escape. That distinction is important. It indicates planning beyond the prison walls, with measures taken to protect essential items from water exposure. At the same time, a torn life vest was recovered, introducing uncertainty into the sequence. The damage suggested possible struggle or failure during the crossing. That changes the structure. It creates two possible outcomes. Either the escapees encountered difficulty in the water, or the damage occurred after the raft had already reached land. Despite extensive search efforts involving boats, aircraft, and shoreline inspections, no bodies were ever recovered. This absence became one of the most significant details in the case. In similar incidents, remains are typically found within days due to currents and tides. The evidence did not resolve the outcome. It pointed in two directions at once, indicating both the possibility of survival and the risk of failure, leaving the final outcome open to interpretation based on incomplete information. The manhunt that found nothing. The escape from Alcatraz Island in 1962 triggered one of the most extensive search operations in United States history, led by the FBI and supported by multiple federal agencies. This matters because the scale of the response reflected how seriously the escape was taken. The prison had been considered inescapable, and the disappearance of inmates challenged that assumption immediately. Now, this is where it becomes important. The search began across San Francisco Bay, where the Coast Guard deployed boats and aircraft to scan the water for any sign of debris or bodies. Helicopters covered large sections of the area, while ground teams searched nearby shorelines. That distinction is important. The operation was not limited to the prison, it extended outward, treating the escape as an active threat rather than a closed event. As the days passed, the search expanded beyond the bay. Alerts were issued nationwide, with law enforcement agencies across multiple states monitoring for sightings. Posters and identification notices were distributed, describing the escapees and warning the public. That changes the structure. It shows that authorities believed survival was at least possible, even if officially considered unlikely. Despite the scale of the operation, no confirmed sightings were ever verified. No arrests were made, and no clear trace of movement was established beyond the initial evidence found near the water. The absence of results became the defining feature of the manhunt. Additional resources were committed over time, including extended surveillance and follow-up investigations in later years. This matters because the case was not closed immediately. Authorities continued to review leads and reports, even when evidence remained limited. However, none of these efforts produced a confirmed outcome. The search ended not with resolution, but with a sustained absence of proof, leaving the escape defined by what could not be found. The letter that reopened the case. In 2013, more than 50 years after the escape from Alcatraz Island, a letter was received by authorities claiming to be from John Anglin, one of the original escapees. This matters because the case had remained officially unresolved, with no confirmed outcome since 1962. The letter introduced new information that required evaluation under modern investigative standards. Now, this is where it becomes important. The letter stated that all three men, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin, had survived the escape and lived in secrecy for decades. It included references to locations such as Seattle, North Dakota, and California, describing movement and concealment over time. That distinction is important. The level of detail suggested familiarity with both the escape and its aftermath. The writer also mentioned declining health and expressed a willingness to surrender under specific conditions, including medical treatment and limited imprisonment. This element added a practical dimension to the claim, shifting it from narrative to potential negotiation. That changes the structure. It moves the case from historical mystery into a present-day consideration. Investigators analyzed the letter for handwriting, language patterns, and factual consistency. Some details aligned with known information, making it difficult to dismiss entirely. However, no conclusive proof confirmed its authenticity. Further analysis focused on forensic testing, including DNA possibilities and comparison with known samples linked to the Anglin family. While some investigative paths showed partial alignment, none reached the threshold required for confirmation. This matters because it kept the letter in a space between evidence and uncertainty. The content was too specific to ignore, yet not strong enough to close the case. The letter did not resolve the case. It reopened it, introducing new possibilities without providing final answers, and reinforcing the uncertainty that has defined the escape for decades. The experiment that changed everything. In 2003, the team from Mythbusters conducted a full reconstruction of the Alcatraz escape, using the same materials and conditions described in the original 1962 plan. This matters because for decades, the official assumption was that survival in the surrounding waters was unlikely. The experiment was designed to test that belief under controlled but realistic conditions. Now this is where it becomes important. The team recreated the raft using raincoats, following the same construction method used by Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers. That distinction is important. It ensured the test was not theoretical, but based on the exact limitations faced during the escape. Timing, tides, and route were also matched as closely as possible to the original night. When the experiment was carried out in San Francisco Bay, the team successfully reached Angel Island, covering the same distance believed to have been attempted during the escape. That changes the structure. It shows that the journey across the water was not only possible, but achievable with the tools and planning available at the time. The result did not confirm what happened after the escape, but it removed a major assumption. The belief that the water guaranteed failure was no longer supported by evidence. The experiment shifted the discussion from impossibility to probability, showing that survival depended on execution rather than chance alone. The breakthrough that finally connects the dots. Advances in image analysis brought new attention to a photograph taken in 1975 in Brazil, which had been linked to the Alcatraz escape for years but never confirmed. This matters because earlier investigations lacked the tools needed to analyze facial features with precision. The image remained a possibility, but not evidence. Now, this is where it becomes important. Using modern AI and facial recognition systems in 2023, analysts compared the faces in the photograph to known images of John Anglin and Clarence Anglin. That distinction is important. The analysis focused on measurable features, bone structure, spacing, and proportions, rather than visual similarity alone. The results indicated a high probability match, suggesting that the individuals in the image could be the same men who escaped from Alcatraz Island in 1962. This finding aligns with earlier reports of sightings in parts of South America, which had remained unverified for decades. That changes the structure. It connects isolated pieces of information into a pattern that suggests movement and survival beyond the initial escape. The implication is not based on a single detail, but on the convergence of evidence, historical records, experimental results, and modern analysis. After more than 55 years, the case no longer rests solely on absence of proof. It now includes evidence that supports the possibility of a successful escape followed by continued survival beyond the United States. After 55 years, the story of the Alcatraz escape no longer ends in uncertainty. New analysis, combined with evidence from 1962 and later discoveries, shifts the narrative from disappearance to possibility. What was once dismissed as failure now carries weight as a carefully executed plan that may have worked. The combination of physical evidence, reconstructed experiments, and modern identification tools changes how the case is understood. It does not rely on a single breakthrough, but on multiple pieces aligning over time. That distinction is important. It shows that answers can emerge slowly, shaped by both past events and present technology. The escape was never fully explained, only assumed. Now, those assumptions are being replaced with evidence that suggests a different outcome. And after decades of silence, the mystery no longer asks what happened. It points toward where they may have gone.